Back to the Red Horn Society. Today I wanted to go over with y'all how to braid a Flemish twist bowstring for a recurve or a longbow. Today we're going to be using a recurve. Longbow is very similar. I think by the end of this tutorial you'll be able to understand how to do either or. So without further ado, years ago in North Carolina, an older gentleman taught me how to braid a Flemish twist bowstring, and it's something that I've retained ever since and I've utilized on all my bows. I can't remember the last time I've actually bought a bowstring for one of my recurves. I've probably braided at this point over 100 bowstrings, not really counting, but I've got a pretty good generalized idea of what you need and how you need to go about it. So for starters, let's go over some of the tools that you're going to need to make this accomplished. Number one, you're going to need a string server, recurve bow, obviously, bow square, pencil, couple of wide-jawed vice clamps, a lighter, a bowstring crimping tool, possibly needle nose pliers, bow wax, bowstring wax, razor blade, possibly the calculator, depending on how good you are at math. So basically, when you want to go down the venture of braiding your own Flemish twist bowstring, what you're going to need to do is take the bow that you want to make the string for and calculate how long you need that bowstring to be. On this particular bow, it's 60 inches limb to limb in the relaxed position. When it's in its strung position, it's going to be 56 to 57 inches is what the bowstring length is going to be, depending on what brace height I want to achieve. Now you might be asking yourself, what's brace height? Brace height is the distance from the bowstring to the front of the sight window. So if you take your square and you put it on your bowstring and you measure it to the front of your sight window or the front of your handle, that's going to be your overall brace height. The further the brace height, the more forgiving your bow is going to be. The narrower the brace height, the faster your arrow speed is going to be, depending on the bow that you're utilizing. So what you're going to want to do is take measurement with your tape measure from knock to knock. In this position, right now it's at 56 and a half inches. That doesn't necessarily mean that's what your bowstring is going to be loop to loop. So a good general rule of thumb to figuring out what your overall string length needs to be is to take the bow length, which will be marked on most recurve bows at the bottom limb, sometimes on the top, but most likely the bottom limb. This one says 60 pounds at 28 inch, meaning your draw. AMO, 60 inch. So that's telling me this is a 60 inch bow. So from that point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say 60 inches limb to limb minus 3.5. On my bow, and when I string my strings, some people say to do minus 4 inches, some people say minus 3. I like to go 3.5 in the middle. So I say 56.5 inch string. I'm going to add 12 inches for my loops and braiding that. Then I'm going to take that and divide it by 12, which is going to give me a calculation of 32.25 inch on my board. I'm going to go ahead and get everything set up so that we can get this board rolling and we can go ahead and get this bowstring on the mat. So I've gone ahead and gotten this last set of wire or strings cut to length, proper length. Like I said in the beginning, this is an 8-strand system. On a 60-pound bow, I like to utilize an 8-strand system. If it's a 45 to 50-pound recurve, you can cut it down to a 7-strand system. However, when it's 60 pounds, 70 pounds, I like to use an 8-strand. If it's 70 or if it's above 70, I'd even feel as tempted to go to a 9-strand. The chances of you shooting a 75 to 80-pound recurve, probably slim to none. However, it does happen. So what I'm going to want to do is take these strings that I had cut previously and kind of just straighten them out a little bit. I don't want them to be all knurled around each other on both sides. Then from that point, I'm going to come down to my shortest strand and move back about 2 to 3 inches. From that point, I'm going to do the same exact thing on my opposite color, and I'm going to try to even these up so they're nice and even. Now from that point, I'm going to go ahead and get these nice and flat with just a yoke position, middle finger going through each one, pinched at this position, and now I'm going to start to braid. So from this point here, I'm going to say twist, bring it around. It's a twist and bring it around. Twist, bring it around. I'm only twisting the top string in my hand. Twist, bring it around. Keep a little tension. Twist, bring it around. Twist, bring it around. Twist, bring it around. Twist, bring it around. I'm just going to keep repeating this process, but at the same time, keeping tension on my bottom finger so those strings don't come loose. Twist, bring it around. Twist, bring it around. Twist, bring it around. I know that's probably starting to sound monotonous. Twist, bring it around. Twist, bring it around. So on and so forth. And just keep bringing it. Now, right now, I'm making my bottom loop. I always like to make my bottom loop a little, before I make my top loop, I like my bottom loop to be smaller than my top loop because the bottom loop is going to remain stationary on the bow. Now, that's about right. That's about all you need to make a bottom loop because I don't want that bottom loop to slip up the limb. So what I'm going to go ahead and do from that point is take my string, wrap it around one of these nails, any one of them will do, while keeping tension on them, and I like to attach my black string to the red wire and my red string to the black wire. For no apparent reason other than cosmetics, I just think it looks a little neater, that's all. And once I have these in the position that I want them, nice and tight, this is where the Flemish twist happens. So I've got them in a position that I like. Now I'm going to go ahead and roll them over to my right hand side, viewer's left. So I'm going to roll both strings. And it's going to start to create this Flemish twist. Now the reason I like to do my bottom loop first is so that if I do have a little bit less string than I would like to have, I can be a little bit more liberal on how I make my top loop. I know some of y'all don't like that word out there. Now from that point, once I get to this point here, and I like that, I'm going to go ahead and switch up to a little overhead hook I made out of some CHHN wire, electrician's wire. And now this is where I really start to getting quick. I'm going to do the same exact process again. Twist, bring it around. Twist, bring it around. So on and so forth. Keep it coming. And all these little staggered strings that I have from my bowstring jig are going to start diving into one another. Now see how neat that looks? I'm just going to keep twisting it on around, ensuring that it's nice and tight. And I'm going to remain doing this. I'm going to keep doing this until all my little stranded wires disappear into this bowstring. Now it's really starting to take shape. That really looks good. Now they've all disappeared, I'm going to go ahead and take my clamp and I'm going to clamp down right about so. If it comes a little undone, it'll be fine. From that point, I'm going to go ahead and take my bowstring wax. I'm going to wax this string up. Just like so. This is going to help lock in some of these twists that you've made. Go ahead and burn that into the fibers. Now some of these little strings that you're seeing hanging off, don't worry about those. We're going to dress it up and make it look fine. here after a while. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and burn that in. All right. Now that I've got that in the position I like it, I'm going to go ahead and take these other strings that I have still remaining, and I'm going to start separating these. I don't want these all bound together when I go to start my top loop. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of go through them, get them untangled, kind of comb them out just a little bit. Those folks, not divided by 12, divided by 2, which is going to give us an overall length of 32¼ inch. So what I'm going to do, since I'm utilizing an 8-strand braid, two string 8 brand, is I'm going to go ahead and count up on my pegs that are divided by 3/4 inch apart. When I built this board probably about 10 years ago, I took and nailed 12 nails into this board, spaced 3/4 inch apart, so that I get the proper dive, and you'll see what I'm talking in reference to momentarily when I actually go to braid the string. So 3/4 inch apart. All these are numbered 1 through 12. So I'm going to come up here to 8 and utilize that as my reference point. I want to take my measurement from my furthest string in. Not my longest, but my furthest string in. So I'm going to go ahead and take my tape measure, place it on the number 8 peg, come down here to 32¼ and then from that point I'm going to go ahead and nail it in. It doesn't have to be exact science, but some people get a little bit more into it than others. Now from that point, I'm going to go ahead and utilize my Darkon B50, which is the only string I ever utilize. I don't like to utilize the Fast Flight and things of that nature. I just don't see the risk versus the reward and damaging my bow limbs. However, y'all can do a little bit more research about that and see if that's something that y'all want to partake in. What I do is I go over this first peg once and then twice, and then I start to dive in. So I'll come around. I like to start my strings off low so they stay nice and untangled. Come around this first time, around the peg. I'm going to do that twice. Now I'm going to come back around on my number 2 peg. Number 3 peg. While at the same time trying to keep these strings nice and organized. Number 7. And then number 8. Now when I get over here to number 8, I'm going to go ahead and just take my string, bring it to this middle position right here. Doesn't have to go all the way back around. I'm going to take my razor blade and just split these right down the middle. And from that point, I'll go ahead and get my Darkon B50 out of there. Pull my original string off and try to keep these strings in their original positions so they remain staggered. And then from that point, just going to lay them over here and start again on the second portion.